just say this. So let me welcome everybody. It is Thanksgiving week. It's hard to believe Thanksgiving's really here. Some people might say, what do we have to be thankful for? We have so much to be thankful for, right? I have so much gratitude for the opportunity to do this show and do it with my partner in talk, Arnie Fielko. It's so great. I'm so grateful that Leigh Steinberg, our guest tonight, has agreed to negotiate all of the future media rights for Maccabi USA for no charge. Thank you, Leigh. Appreciate that. I just want to share that COVID has taught us a lot, and especially me. And I learned that gratitude actually, especially in these challenging times, is a daily practice. And while I've always loved this holiday, and I still do, and it's always a time to reflect, I realized that the time to reflect is every day. And I'm going to talk a lot more about this joy tomorrow on our show, Refresh. But tonight, I thought it might be nice to add a little dimension to our gathering, which is to take a Maccabi, think about a Maccabi moment of thanks, you know, and it would be fun if people took a little time and maybe during our interview and talk with Leigh tonight, you just post your Maccabi moment of thanks, because it would be nice to share it with everyone, especially in this time of Thanksgiving. And Arnie and I can speak for Arnie on this one. Arnie, you let me speak for you all the time anyway. We're thankful for tonight's guest, Leigh Steinberg. Let me just say, if you don't know who Leigh is, I want to just say he was the agent, the one, the man so influential, so I would say, so into creating markets that they created a movie about him, which we'll talk a little bit about. He is a California boy, born in LA, went to Cal Berkeley. You know, I'm always going to say that, being a Cal Berkeley mom. 45+ year career representing athletes to harness the power of sport for the betterment of society. And by the way, I think that's what we do here at Maccabi USA. We're all about creating a better world, inspiring pride, Jewish pride in our world through sports. Branding, role model. He established so many of the baseline fundamentals for growing sports agency as a business, and we all know what it is today. It's enormous. I can read through all of this stuff, but actually, I'm going to just say this. Impressive, incredible career, groundbreaker, legendary, has a legacy that we're going to talk about tonight, and grateful for him saying yes. I'm sure a lot of you have some questions. Leigh, just so you know, people have already sent some questions to us. And so, without further ado, Leigh Steinberg, welcome.
Thank you so much, Donna and Arnie. It's great to be with you all. I'm here in Newport Beach, and but I'm excited. Do you want me to answer questions or talk a little bit?
No, we're gonna ask you questions. Arnie and I will ask you a couple questions, and then as we go, people in the chat, and then we'll pick up some questions. But we also have like a cheat sheet, right? We know everything about you right now. Well, maybe not everything, but a lot, enough. Arnie always kicks off with the best first question. So, hey, Arnie, good to see you.
Hey, Donna. Wow, what a show. Leigh Steinberg. Leigh, thank you so much for being with us. We have been doing this show now for, 6 months, and we've had amazing guests, and you are one of those amazing guests. So there's so much to cover tonight. I hope we can do it in an hour, and we invite, as always, all of our followers on the Zoom to put your questions into the chat, and we will do our very best to answer them. Let me start it out. You know, Leigh, let's kind of go back to the beginning here. You know, as an undergrad at Berkeley and then law school, did you have a driving desire to be in the sports field generally and the agency field specifically? You know, what could you ever have imagined that you would have had the career that you've had?
No, and I'll go back even farther, Arnie. I'm really proud of my Jewish heritage. My grandfather, Leo, was a doctor in Los Angeles and helped found City of Hope.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
In the War of Independence in 1947 to minister to the Jewish soldiers. And their convoy was going from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and it was hijacked, and my grandfather was killed. So he's buried in Safat. I have 2 cousins one lives in Tel Aviv and the other in Jerusalem. So they emigrated there. And um, and I've worked really hard to create programs designed to fight anti-Semitism and spot skinheads and hate groups, and I can talk about that. But in terms of my career, no, I was at Berkeley. I was student body president in the 1960s. Ronald Reagan was governor, and everything I needed to learn about negotiating, I learned from dealing with Reagan, because we would demonstrate against the war in Vietnam and he would crack down. And so we went back and forth. But I was a dorm counselor in an undergraduate dormitory, and they moved the freshman football team into the dorm. And one of the students was named Steve Bartkowski. And in 1975, he became the very first player selected in the first round of the NFL draft. Well, there really wasn't much organized sports agentry then. Teams could just hang up the phone and say, we don't deal with agents. So we ended up getting the largest rookie contract in NFL history. And I remember flying into Atlanta, and there were Klieg lights at the airport the night before, and a huge crowd was pressed up against the police line. And the first thing we heard was, we interrupt the Johnny Carson show to bring you a special news bulletin. Steve Bartkowski and his attorney have just arrived at the Atlanta airport. We switch you live for an in-depth interview. Oh my goodness. I sort of looked at Bartkowski like Dorothy looked at Toto when they got to Munchkin Land, and I said, I know we're not in Berkeley anymore. And I saw the tremendous idol worship and veneration that athletes are held in communities across the country. So my dad had two core values that he raised me with outside of spiritual ones. One was treasure relationships, especially family. And the second was try to make a meaningful difference in the world and help people who can't help themselves. And I saw that athletes could be role models, and if they would retrace their roots to the high school community that helped shape them, to the collegiate community that nurtured them. So Troy Aikman went back and endowed a full scholarship at UCLA, or Edgerrin James at the University of Miami, or Warren Moon at the University of Washington. And then at the pro level would set up a charitable foundation with the leading political figures, business leaders, and community leaders, that they could take on some cause near to them. And so it would be like Warwick Dunn, the running back for Atlanta, has just put the 171st single mother and her family into the first home they'll ever own by paying the down payment and outfitting the house. And they also could trigger imitative behavior. So I had Lennox Lewis cut a public service announcement that said, real men don't hit women. It was the heavyweight boxing championship. And that could do more to stimulate positive attitudes towards domestic violence and rebellious adolescents than 1,000 authority figures. So here we are 46 years later, 64 first round draft picks in football with the very first pick 8 times, about 60 and 11 players in the Hall of Fame, 60 baseball players, basketball, boxing, Olympic athletes. And but my chief distinction in all these years is I'm in 3 Jewish sports Hall of Fames, Orange County, Southern California, and Northern California, which shows you how bereft our people are for true athletes.
Well, you know, that we have talked about that before, Leigh, but we don't have to talk about that tonight. Listen, you have seen so much in your career. I'm going to just jump to the present because I'm fascinated by this. You have made billions of dollars for your athletes. And we are now in the time of trying to determine NIL, right? Name, image, and likeness. Student athletes are going to start being able to make money. We don't know exactly how. We don't know exactly how it's going to be governed. As a country, I think we've gone from a lot of people thinking this is impossible and stupid to like, yeah, this is the right thing. What do you think? Like, what do you think about this?
I'm heavily behind it. California started the trend off with a bill called SB 206, which would allow athletes to utilize and market their name, image, and likeness, and have representation. Now, the NCAA responded by setting up a similar concept, and it will start in January. What we've had for years and years is that athletes who come from middle class or affluent families, they live fine on scholarship, but athletes who don't actually live at a lower standard of living than their non-athletic peers. And they can't work to supplement their income, and they're intelligent enough to realize they can see their jersey in the student store. And if we want to keep athletes in college and not jumping to the pros, we need to do everything we can. Now, this is not going to affect massive amounts of players. Think about a quarterback from a national program. Think Johnny Manziel or Jameis Winston or our guy Tua Tagovailoa. That's the type of athlete, but it could be women, for example, Olympic athletes also. So today it's all about branding, and brand is how many people out of 100 can name this name, and if they can they stick an appellation to it? He's a quarterback, she's a swimmer, and if they can do that, they have positive feelings about it, and that's Q factor. So the currency today is all social media. How many followers you have on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat, and on and on and on. And they become the currency. They set the value for someone doing marketing, create the brand that would make a commercial advertiser want to go with them.
Hey, Leigh, let's you've been incredibly successful in multiple sports. The NFL obviously being maybe the largest, but you've been involved in other sports as well. Can you just kind of every sport, I think those on the call know, has a different collective bargaining agreement and different compensation structure. But can you talk kind of generally about the differences of the different professional sports you've worked across?
Sure. So football players, amazingly, are probably the most sophisticated athletes because they at least have to attend college for 3 years. And I'm not talking about the quality of what they're getting as an education or how great a student they are, but just being on a college campus will give you a little more culture. Baseball players come directly out of high school in large part, and some after their junior year. So the systems in football, we have a salary cap for rookie players. So there's not much negotiability for those contracts right now. Basketball also has a salary cap for their rookies. And again, there's not a whole lot of negotiability. Baseball is an age-related sport. So it just depends. If you're in your first years, you can be paid the minimum, which is why Mike Trout was making $700,000 when a utility infielder was making $20 million. And then years 0 through 3, the player can be forced to play for the minimum. Years 4 through 6 is salary arbitration, a very unique system where the arbitrator has demands from both a team and from a player and has to choose between them. And then after year 6, they're free agents. And oh my goodness, there you go. So the highest paid sport for years was basketball, with baseball being next. But we did a little contract for Patrick Mahomes that pays him $47.5 million a year. So football's sort of catching up. The most popular sport in America is NFL football. and the reader polls show it by 3-1. The most popular television show is nighttime NFL football. We've never had a sport that dominates this way. When you and I were growing up, Arnie, it was baseball. And but now it's the NFL by far, and the second most popular sport's college football. So they're all there, and we now have all these ancillary revenue sources, from fantasy to always gambling to new apps that can bring you close. We have a new program we're going to bring out soon, which is virtual reality. And so you put on the headset and you are Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead Stadium. And predicated on what you do with the ball in your hand, you either get rushed and sacked by the defensive players, or you throw a touchdown pass, but it feels real. Of course, we can't totally simulate what getting sacked would be like, but it's real. And there are new football leagues that allow fans to pick the owners and general managers and actually draft the player. I mean, we're all out into new ways for fans to get closer to sport.
It's incredible. I wanted to say, it is so nice. There's all these people putting up their Maccabi memory moments that the gratitude there, right? So you get a chance to read them. I want to invite everybody. We have Leigh Steinberg here. He's willing to answer all of our questions. So just put them up. I just wanted to add, so Brendan Slomka, just so you know, Leigh, he is our Syracuse University student. He joins us every other Tuesday night. And this is a follow-up to the name, image, and likeness. How will athletes be able to be paid affect the NCAA's ability to maintain a fair and equal playing field? That is the question, right? How are these payments going to be, I guess, monitored? It seems like they already have enough trouble with everything going on with illegal basketball payments.
So again, this is not going to affect massive numbers of people, but think of it as an athlete as having 3 markets, okay? Local, so that would be Atlanta, regional, that would be the Southeast, right, and national. And so it's very few athletes who get to that last level. It's a pyramid. So it won't be too many folks, but they're going to be allowed to have marketing agents. It changes our business dramatically, because normally I wouldn't meet a Mahomes or Tua Tagovailoa or someone like that until right before their junior year, if they were going to come out. And now all of a sudden, a 17-year-old entering college, the quarterback at Alabama or Clemson or Ohio State, one of the national programs, all of a sudden becomes someone you have to talk to. Or an Olympic athlete that's going to compete is someone that you need to talk to, and they'll be able to have a marketing agent. My assumption is whoever the marketing agent is will end up being the agent for professional sports. So it just moves younger, the whole competition, agentry, professionalism, and all the rest of it.
I just want, Arnie, before you jump in here, Leigh, I think actually that this is going to be maybe not in big dollars, much more expansive, because if you look at every college town, and it doesn't have to be, you know, the top 40 football teams, but if you're a college town, that is the focus of your community. So I live in Jacksonville. We have UNF. We don't even have football here, but I got to believe our basketball team, which has done fairly well. There's going to be a car dealer here. There's going to be a restaurant here. There's going to be perhaps a clothing store. They're all, for not a lot of money, have a chance to attach their brands to athletes that are revered in the market. So I think not a lot of money, but I think it's going to make an impact.
I agree, because depending on the town, it could be your hometown, right? And the pride that people feel for that. So it's all in the marketing and branding, and it's how many, what we do in marketing is product categories, okay? So automotive is a product category, Soft drinks are a product category, water, anyway. Clothing and apparel, insurance, the internet, and you can do one deal in each product category. So the concept of group licensing, which is a project that might have 6 or more players in it, is also something that people will look at. So you're right, it may be that to anyone with a University of Alabama association is going to be interesting. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will see.
Yeah,
So, Arnie,
no, I just want to comment, Donna, I think also, Leigh, the more avid the community is, the more that's going to come true. I'm in New Orleans. If an LSU football player, wants to come here and put his name and likeness out there, I mean, he's going to have suitors all over the place. So it's going to be really interesting to follow, the legal cases that have come down, and it'll be fascinating to see what the outcome is. Leigh, I want to, my understanding of the agency field back kind of when you had started is agents really were involved in negotiating contracts as pretty much the thing to do. It seems over the years that agents have broadened that role now with athletes to be full service, so that they are helping on marketing and philanthropy and setting up their foundations and things like that. Just kind of maybe talk about the transition from where it started to maybe where it is today.
So we try to profile players looking for people who are brighter, self-starters, have a compassionate heart. And the first step in it is to listen. I think the most critical skill in life is listening. And it's being able to draw out another human being and understand at a deep level what their greatest anxieties and fears are and what their greatest hopes and dreams are. If you can put yourself into the heart and mind of another human being and see the world the way they see it, from their perspective, you can navigate your way through life. So the first thing I'll do with an athlete is to say, how important to you is short-term economic gain, money now, long-term economic security, money over time, family, spiritual values, geographical location, being in a certain place, whether urban, rural. How important is profile to you? How important is making a difference in the world? And then for an athlete, how important is being a starter, being on a winning team, the quality of coaching, the system they play, the facilities. And you get into that person, and then you start from the beginning by focusing them on, if you are not an athlete, what other skills do you have or interests do you have that we can work on in the off season to try to build a second career? And part of it, as I said, so I will help an athlete go back, set up a high school scholarship fund, work with a Boys and Girls Club or a church, or in our case, a temple. And then we'll go to the college campus, and those alums, after all, relate to the school through the football and basketball program primarily. And so let's take a player like Earl Campbell. He would not have been able to set up this very successful meat packing company that he has without the help of University of Texas alums. The all-time sack leader, Bruce Smith, was helped by Virginia Tech alums to set up a program. I have 3 football players who are minority owners of actual teams. Okay, so for this generation, we're looking for them to be the principal, to own the business, to own part of a team. Patrick Mahomes just bought part of the Kansas City Royals. So very different. And then we help them brand themselves, which hopefully they do charitably at the start, because I believe, like with Mahomes, we did not market him for the first 2 years. We wanted to prove to the community of Kansas City, to the owner, to the team, that he was serious about sports, that he put football first, and before he took anything out of Kansas City, he would give back. So it's second career. it's for a high profile athlete, it's what opportunities can you work out? It's not just endorsements, it's taking equity in the right startup that might become a huge hit, and then having a liquidity event at the end of it. It really is full services. Now, financial planning, we don't do in-house, because I think that the people who do that, who help a player with understand the essentials of financial planning, how to budget, how to live on a budget, how to deal with the tax system, and all the rest are experts. So you have two people in our life, but at any rate, my job is complete when a player has successfully gone into second career. So Duran Cherry's in Kansas City. He has the Cherry Foundation. He retires, and guess what? They allow him to buy the Anheuser-Busch distributorship in Kansas City, which in Missouri is a license to print money. And then I introduced him to Wayne Weaver, who owned, Donna, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Know Wayne well. Know Wayne well.
And Duran became the first retired player in years to actually own a small piece of Jacksonville, of a football team and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I had Mark Brunell at Jacksonville. And the funny thing about it is we have players in every city, I'm sure, that's represented here. Either someone came from that was their hometown, or where they went to college, or where they played professionally. And so it's nice to see people spread across the country.
Hey, Donna, can I ask one quick follow-up? Leigh, for many years, I ran the NBA Retired Players Association. How important is it for someone in your industry to stay with those players through their life? Obviously, once they retire, they have another series of issues that they deal with for life. But how is it, first of all, is it commonplace for the agents to stay with their former players? And what do you do in your own business?
So since we profile ahead of time and make sure, my general concept is if I'm in front of our type of athlete, meaning someone who's charitably oriented, ambitious for second career, understands the power of sports and their obligation as role models to make a difference. That's someone I can have a long-term relationship with. So Warren Moon and I were together for 23 years. He played 6 in Canada and 17 in the NFL, and he gave me the great privilege of presenting him at the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. I was with Troy Aikman for 12 or 14 years, Steve Young for his whole career, basketball player, Greg Anthony for his whole career, most of the baseball players. So our whole system is designed to make this initial decision the only one they'll have to make. And but again, it gives you a lifestyle where you're traveling to charitable events in different cities and banquets. And this year's been different in football because, first of all, we have only some of the stadiums allowing fans. And second of all, instead of the athlete being able to see me the night before at their hotel for a little one-on-one, they're locked down with coronavirus, and instead of them walking out of the stadium and being able to see you, they can't do that either. So it's a little different, but that's sort of the variety of different services.
Right. Leigh, I'm curious as to what you're seeing now. Obviously unusual in the time of COVID, sports has taken an enormous hit. We've learned how valuable sports are to the fan and the marketplace. The NBA's down at least $1 billion. Don Garber, who's been on our show, a friend of Don Kent and mine, he's talked about MLS being $1 billion. I assume one of the first things you want to do is you want to understand the marketplace and get in and negotiate the best deal. Where do you think the marketplace is right now?
So I took the position years ago that the real battle in sports was not labor versus management. And I went to owners and said, we're doing this wrong. If we have destructive public negotiations where it's a player saying he can't live with $10 million, he needs to have 15, we're going to push fans away. If we have contentious collective bargaining, which pits millionaires against billionaires, it's like Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. We're going to push away. Our job is to build the brand, because sports at the professional level is not bread and butter on the table. It's a discretionary expenditure by a fan. And our real competition, if we're the NFL, is the NBA, the MLB, home box office, Walt Disney World, and every other form of entertainment. So we need to build the brand of this sport, and we need to look at how many ancillary revenue streams we can set up, okay? So can we blow out the television contract by creating competition among networks? Can we use the internet as a marketing tool? Can we build new stadia that have luxury boxes and suites, and have priority seating, and have jumbo scoreboards, and do naming rights and all the rest of it? I created an app to keep young fans in the stadium, because I believe that we've got a real problem with millennials. Because with millennials who are used to multitasking and changing their focus every few milliseconds, to sit there for a football game that has 20 minutes of actual action, they want to be multitasking. So I created an app, and down one side runs your fantasy stats. You can hold this on your phone, and down the other side, when you go to the game, goes your gambling bets. And we have a capacity underneath to text, so you can talk smack to people in or out of the stadium. And we allow the fans to vote on one play call a game. And we allow the fans to vote on which the coach has to call. And we allow them to vote on one referee overturn. And when you touch it, you can order from the snack bar. And when you touch it, you get an unrelenting, unremitting diet of games, puzzles, quizzes, and it all monetizes at the end. So where we are with Corona is temporary. And I think sports have done a terrific job having to be completely creative and completely flexible in what they do. Many people thought, well, we won't have a baseball season, but we did, and our Dodgers won. And they said, well, we're not going to have an NBA season, but they did, and our Lakers won. And currently we're in an NFL season that's very popular. And I believe that I wrote an article last week on my experience at Hard Rock Stadium. That they did a terrific job from when you get out of the parking lot, get out of your car, they have big megaphones saying, do not get out of your car if you don't have a mask on. And then you approach the stadium and they sequence the people in groups. And then you can be on the escalator very close to anybody else. And they're wiping everything down, and the food's prepackaged. So we will survive all this. And the popularity of professional sports and collegiate sports is still going to boom.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I'm just asking Don Kent, who just sat down with a drink, where ours are, Arnie. Oh, Lee's got a drink too. Hello. Like, what's the story here?
What?
This. All right, it's okay. I get it. I'm grateful.
This is a diet Dr. Pepper.
Arnie.
That's sweetened by stevia.
Okay.
Hey, you've had, so many amazing clients. I actually went on your Twitter and I saw Warren Moon on there today, so I know he was one of your favorite. I want to ask you a two-part question. Is it possible to tell us maybe kind of your top three, if you have them, in terms of clients? And the other side of it is, what was your toughest negotiation, and with whom in the management side? If you could share that with us. This is off the record. We're all friends here. So.
Yeah. And Leigh's not been around the block at all, Ernie.
Not at all.
Tell us your deepest secrets now, Leigh.
Obviously, I was with Warren Moon for 23 years. We sort of grew up together. And when he came out of school, he had to go to Canada because there was racism in the NFL that didn't think a quarterback could really take that position. Some of my most fun experiences have been if I finally get a Jewish athlete, and we represented Sean Green. And I was able to get him into the Jewish community, which was great. Then I had a tight end named John Franks, who, unbelievable. He retired because he was worried about his thumbs and he wanted to become a plastic surgeon. So it's, I've had more fun representing Jewish athletes, because when I grew up, my biggest hero was Sandy Koufax. And
Yes.
when I was a young kid in the 50s, the Dodgers came, and Sandy Koufax, as a matter of fact, the World Series winning team had 4 Jewish athletes on the baseball team. It was Larry and Norm Sherry, Chuck Asigian, and Sandy Koufax. And so that was really sort of cool. And I'm proud of all the people involved in athletics here, because they're such terrific role models. And we need this right now. It's the height of anti-Semitism. We got skinheads and hate groups everywhere. We won't get into politics, but there's been not enough pushback. We spend so much money on Homeland Security. Well, they're not a threat to me. In other words, we haven't had an incident in a long time. But I'll tell you who is: white supremacists and skinheads. And my name's been on a death list twice here in Orange County, for being prominent. And they target Jews in sports. So the program I'm proudest of, I did with the Anti-Defamation League, and we went to 30 big cities and we trained young people in how to spot skinheads and hate groups, and how to help local police departments, and how to intervene in crisis situations, and how to go into school systems and promote ethnic tolerance. And we created about 10,000 young volunteers, Jewish volunteers, in the fight against hate. So probably because, look, this is our watch and our time. And we weren't alive during the Holocaust. We couldn't do anything about that, but we're alive and active here, and we can make sure our kids and no kids grow up in this atmosphere of QAnon and pressure and all the rest of it. I'm not an international banker. I don't think anyone on this call is, and we need to push back.
This is our watch and our time. I'm going to quote you on that one, Leigh. It's a powerful statement. Arnie and I are actually working on an anti-Semitic project right now, so we'd love to call you and talk about a little bit more about your work, because this is the audience. This is a belief system that's foundational, I believe, and we do have a responsibility, and we're going to try to act on it and build on the work that you do. In the meantime, I'm going to give you a question from Donna Cohen, and I am really appreciated that Donna asked this. She said, you mentioned several male athletes. Do you find a difference in representing women? And can you share some of the stories as how you assist women athletes in gaining equity and equality?
So one of the female athletes I had, who ironically was Jewish, was Kerry Strugg, who stuck the vault in the 1996 Olympics that won the gold medal. And so with an Olympic athlete, they have a very short shelf life. Because if they're not doing a sport that continues, it's not like they're having season after season. If their high point is at gymnastics, so we're faced with a challenge. So I had to be a little bit innovative in terms of having her ring the bell at the stock exchange, have Steve Case, the head of AOL, emulate the photo where her coach was carrying her. We had to create a whole. We had her do the ice capades on the sidelines doing gymnastics. We went to Saturday Night Live and convinced them that they ought to do a skit which sort of mimicked her high voice, which she has a very high voice. Barbara Walters, most interesting people. So the problem with female sports, and I was the first vice chairman of the Cal Women's Support Board for Women's Sports, is that it's apology to the extent that they argue they shouldn't be on television because they're not popular enough. When you put women's sports on TV, they get more popular, you know, so I mean, you look at a sport like women's volleyball, and it's fast, it's exciting. You've got just like in basketball, you have the woman's full body there, so you can see them. They're not wearing helmets. So I've tried to advise women's soccer in how women's soccer and how to achieve pay equity and how to frame a public program where they compete on the federation. And I represented the men's team in the 1994 World Cup, where it was played in Los Angeles. And I'll tell you, representing a group is much harder than representing an individual athlete, because you've got all these different opinions and all these different feelings. But I'm anxious to see women's soccer is really the most popular soccer.
Thanks, Donna. We appreciate that. Arnie?
Yeah. Hey, Leigh, I know you do a lot of work with young folks in terms of helping them gain entry into the sports industry. I think you do a series of conferences around the country. You know, when I got into the industry, if you want to be in sports, you went to law school. Now there's sport management programs at undergraduate and graduate levels. And what would be your advice for those that might be on the Zoom tonight that want to get into the industry? What's the best pathway to go about doing that?
So I've spoken on 85 campuses, either to the student body or to the law school, business school, sports marketing. And because there were so many people that wanted to get involved in sports. Now remember, you can work for a team, a league, a conference, an athletic department. You can work in sports marketing, branding, sports PR, agentry, facilities management, sports philanthropy. There are expansive numbers of jobs now. So I decided to create a sports career conference, and we do these about 12 times a year. So you go to steinbergsports.com. But what we have is a panel for an hour on media. So you have television folks and writers and producers. It shows you all the different jobs you can have. We just did one a week ago Saturday. And then you have one on how to work for a team, a league, a front office. And then you have one on marketing, branding. And then you have one on charity and then entrepreneurship. So you're welcome to try that. And then we do an agent academy where we break the young people into groups, and they have to actually recruit a player, and they have to figure out a budget, and they have to figure out damage control. We give them a really tough case. So the most important thing I would tell anyone who wants to be in sports is study psychology. I mean, Arnie made the point, you used to need to be a lawyer. Well, you don't in most things, not even in agentry, unless you want to be the lawyer at one of those institutions. But study psychology. Everything in life is about the interaction of human beings. And if you can understand what motivates people and what motivates them to act the way they do, you can navigate your way gracefully through this. Who's my biggest missed opportunity? Back in 1998, there were two hot quarterbacks coming out of college. One was named Ryan Leaf and the other was named Peyton Manning. And this is, you'll never believe this, but Ryan Leaf was valued by a lot of clubs above Peyton Manning. So I took Ryan Leaf, famous last words. Let's see, who else did I turn down? Lance Armstrong, that was a great move. Well, at the end, it probably was a judicious move, but for a long time, it was a silly move.
Right. So listen, a lot of questions. There's a bunch of questions. We're not going to get to all of them, but we got to bring up Jerry Maguire, Leigh. Do you ever get tired of being asked about Jerry Maguire? For anyone, has everyone seen the movie Jerry Maguire? If you haven't, you should. It's an instant classic about a sports agent. Rumors, although we could confirm those rumors tonight, right, Leigh? Whether this was arguably patterned after the agent himself, Mr. Leigh Steinberg. How real?
So Cameron Crowe, who was a director screenwriter, called me up in 1993, and I had seen a movie called Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was his journey underground into a high school, which I thought was really funny. And he asked if he could follow me around and to pick up atmosphere and stories for a film based on a sports agent. So I said yes, and he went with me to the league meetings of the NFL in 1993 and watched me with free agents, and I introduced him to all sorts of folks. Then we had the first pick in the draft in 93 up in Boston. It was Drew Bledsoe with the Patriots, and he came there, and then he came to the press conference with Bill Parcells. He came to Pro Scouting Day at SC. He came to a series of games with me. And I told him lots of stories, lots and lots of stories. So obviously it's not completely biographical, because I started with the first pick in the first round of the draft. There's not much of an arc of struggle that would do, but a lot of life is up there on the screen. And then he asked me to vet the script. And I did a couple movies after that, Any Given Sunday and For the Love of the Game. He asked me to vet the script to make sure that the willing suspension of disbelief to hold you in a motion picture didn't get broken. He didn't think it was phony, the look or the dialogue. And then I took Cuba Gooding Jr. down to the Super Bowl in Arizona and made him pretend he was, yes, it's a great Sean Penn performance. It's his greatest dramatic role, Fast Times, right? And I took Cuba with me. I made him pretend he was a wide receiver for the whole week, and he had to hang with Desmond Howard and Amani Toomer. I actually had to show the quarterback in the film, played by Jerry O'Connell, how to throw a spiral, because he had gone to NYU and they didn't have football there. So it's a lot of life, and I've never been able for 22 years to walk through an airport or go out to eat very long where someone doesn't run up to the table and either ask me to say or says to me those 4 words, which start with "show me the
money."
Hey, Leigh, I know somebody wants to weigh in a second here, but I want to just kind of ask you, this has been a strange year, obviously, and we just finished a virtual draft in the NBA, and we had one in April in the NFL, and you're seeing things like esports and now sports betting. And predict a little bit, if you could, where do we go from here with the sports industry? What's next on the horizon the next few years?
It's all about fan experience. It's all about the next way to bring fans closer. So it starts with fantasy sports, but then there are all sorts of interesting new apps and iterations. I've been really involved in the fight to try to bring prevention, awareness, and cure to athletic concussion, because I had a crisis of conscience back in the 90s when my quarterbacks kept getting hurt. So we've had 14 conferences on that. It's virtual reality, augmented reality. It's it's a fan sitting at home, wired up to a chair, which allows him or her to either feel the exhilaration of running a kickback 100 yards, or to feel the impact of getting hit by a defensive lineman, or to feel the rush when you hit a home run, or you dunk a ball. It's all about enhanced fan experience and holding on to that next generation. More people skate today, or skateboarders today, than play Little League baseball. And so we have to keep the major sports current and connected to the next generation. We're doing a great job, given the totality of, against the backdrop of sports being completely shut down, of, again, being innovative and creative in the way we present it. But with 193,000 cases in one day last week, till we get the vaccine, this is not going away soon. And when you have people fighting over whether or not to wear masks, it's not going to go away quickly.
That's absolutely true. But one of the things we can do is we can get more money for the skateboarders too, right, Leigh?
Yeah, well, everything.
We can do that. We can do that. We can build up skateboarding. But I just wanted, you mentioned philanthropy. You mentioned a lot how you guide your athletes as to their charitable efforts. I just wanted to mention that we have a gentleman in our community here, Roy Kessel, who created I think the Sports Philanthropy Network. It works with athletes all over the country, working with them to try to develop their philanthropic skills. And he had a conference recently, which I attended.
Roy is terrific. I just spoke at his philanthropy.
Yeah, so did I. And I was just so proud of him because I thought he did a great job, right?
He's great, and what he's doing is great, and it's just going to build and build. Yeah,
so listen, we do have a special guest tonight, somebody who actually worked for Mr. Steinberg in the day. It's great hearing Leigh tell all his stories, but I thought it would also be nice if one of your ex-agent employees gave a little perspective. So I'd like to, and the great thing about this is that George Schlachter is a Maccabi alumnus. He played basketball for Maccabi USA. He met his wife actually on a team I think that I chaired originally. So his wife is a Maccabi USA, and he's also a Leigh Steinberg alumni. So where are you, Jordan?
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, tell us about the day with Mr.
Yeah,
Steinberg.
look, I don't want to talk for a long time, and I was not an agent. I was one of the marketers and operators who worked for Leigh. But I just wanted to say, I think everybody I've been lucky enough to work in the sports industry for 30 years. And I've seen everything you can see, and I've been around everybody you could be around. But I think whenever you listen to Leigh, whenever you get the chance to meet Leigh or hear him speak, one thing is really apparent. And this is maybe the part about Jerry Maguire that is the most biographical of them all. But if you remember, Jerry Maguire wrote his manifesto at the very beginning about caring about your athletes and about caring about your clients. And I will say this, having been in this business for 30 years, like I said, experiencing a lot of people, Leigh Steinberg is hands down one of the most decent men and decent people you will ever come across in this industry or not in this industry. And you hear him talk about philanthropy, and you hear him talk about care for his athletes, and you hear him talking about making sure they're set for the future. And to be perfectly honest with you, that is not, an attitude that is necessarily prevalent in this industry, but Leigh lives it and breathes it every day. And I think he's kind of shared that with us tonight. And it's really important to just kind of point out how special that is. And, I only worked for him for 2 years in the early 2000s, but it was, and I came back because I'm a native New Yorker. And, for some reason that Orange County lifestyle didn't fit with me. It might now, but it didn't then. But Leigh, thank you and the whole sports community. thanks you for the person that you are, as well as, his successes they speak for themselves. The draft picks, the talent, the Hall of Famers, the multiple sports, that all speaks for itself. But when you know what's behind that person, it really is exemplary. So, my personal thank you, Leigh. It might
Thank
be.
Jordan, you're a mensch.
And so I just want to say Jordan's recognition is being echoed by a lot of people in the chat, Leigh, who are thanking you. I do want to read this one. Please tell Mr. Steinberg that his presentation was terrific, entertaining, modest, insightful, civic-minded, and proof positive why he is so incredibly successful. I trust that Judge Vic Bianchini, mediator arbitrator, is your good friend. I can tell you he's a nice man. He's very thoughtful, but he's joined with a lot of sentiment like that. So I wanted to thank you. I know Arnie, you want to thank Leigh as well.
No, I do. This is great, Leigh. I mean, it's a real honor to have you on, and I'm glad Jordan said that because your reputation, precedes you in terms of being a real mensch and a wonderful person. So thank you for being with us tonight, and best wishes to you and your family. Happy Thanksgiving to you as we go into the coming days.
I also want to thank everybody for posting your Maccabi moments. I want to say to our team, make sure you get those because they're great for social media and whatever else. I mean, it's just really so nice when the community comes together like that and remembers why we're here and the goodness of it. I so enjoyed reading them. I also get to tell you about our last show before the holiday, actually before Hanukkah. This is a guy from Queens, New York. Did you get it yet? He studied industrial and labor relations at Cornell. Not yet, huh? Named Sports Executive of the Year in 2014 by the Sports Business Journal. Inducted into the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame in 2016. Inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2018. He's currently the longest active commissioner of professional sports. We are really thrilled that Commissioner Gary Bettman will be here on the 8th. We expect all of you and more to join us as well. When we have another, I don't know how we follow up Leigh. It's hard. But maybe Leigh, you want to join us and you can pepper some questions at Commissioner Bettman. But we're thrilled that Gary has agreed. As you know, Gary's been instrumental in helping us start ice hockey in Israel. So it's great that he'll be joining us. So we have this incredible 1-2 punch to conclude the year. And to all of you, a sincere and happy Thanksgiving. Be grateful for what we have and not what we don't. And enjoy your holiday with whomever you're choosing to spend it with. Good night, everybody.